looked up just kind of some basic groove here. See if I can remember the chord progression. Here it's just nice, slow, kind of slow to mid-tempo. We've got B flat to F, C to G. So we get thrown this. This gets thrown in our face and we're like, all right, okay, come up with something, Mr. Bass Player. Come up with a line that's gonna groove, that's gonna hold it all together. Now I think as bassists, we know that we definitely are the bridge and the link between the rhythm and the harmony. Between drums and melody and all that kind of stuff. So what I like to do with anything new, typically if nothing really jumps out to go, hey, here's a little hook idea, here's a little riff idea, start with the roots. As bass players, start with the roots and just, lock in with the drums. So this. If you haven't explored getting inside whole notes, because I know a lot of times it's like, yay, here we go, whole notes again, awesome. How can I make that interesting and not fall asleep throughout the night? There's a bunch of different ways we can actually start diving into how we're playing. One of the biggest things for me, whole note wise and ballad wise, was back on the coast doing a session with some friends, and the bass line was kind of like this. It was just that. Like that. So I'm okay, playing it, and my producer friend's like, oh, that's interesting. Like, that's how you play your whole notes. And I'm like, aren't they in time? I'm like, yeah, that's wrong. He's like, no, they're in time and it sounds good, the tone's good. It's just, you don't use any vibrato. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not playing my upright bass. Why would I use vibrato? This is electric and it's fretted. And he's like, oh, well, so-and-so, he uses some vibrato. And I'm like, oh, well, I've got to be like so-and-so. I can't let him beat me and get more gigs. But no, is another really respected local bassist. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to listen to this, because if he's playing it like this, then I'm going to. So it's the little difference of, we can just play right on the beat and just hold our finger down, right up close to the fret, so we're closing the note off and getting the best tone. We're not, if you've ever had that and gone, oh, what's wrong with my action? What's wrong with my setup? It's like, well, it's just because we're not right on the fret. So, those are good sounding whole notes. Then I added this into it. Again, it's a really subtle thing. I'll play it through a couple times just straight, and then we'll add some vibrato in. And now with just a little bit of vibrato. So hopefully you're picking up on it a little bit. Now again, as a bassist, this is the kind of stuff that growing up in southern Alberta before, for young folks here, before this thing called the internet and YouTube and everything else, learning to play, listening to my cassettes and CDs, the stuff that I really got into wasn't necessarily tons of flashy kind of stuff. It was Flea and the Chili Peppers is definitely one of the places where I learned how to play bass. But some more just like groove-oriented stuff. And so diving into, like really diving into the minutia of the note and tone. And I didn't have money for pedals, and there was nowhere near the amount of pedals and gear and multi-effects back in the day. And I had my bass and this tiny little like old tube guitar combo that my brother used to use that I could only turn up, like could talk over it very easy because it would just start breaking up if I turned it up too loud with bass. So I had to just really dig into getting into, well, how do I change my tone up just with my hands? And so again, with relearning how to play these whole notes with vibrato now with my electric, as soon as I started doing that, right away I went, oh my gosh, there's a lot more life to that note. And it doesn't, like, you know, Joe Lunchbox, music consumer on the other end of the speaker, might not ever pick up on it and go, oh, listen to that, listen to the vibrato on that whole note, the bass players. No, like that's probably not going to happen. But hopefully what will happen with that is the combined intention behind the notes makes it to the other side of the speaker, and that's why when you hear a tune you go, whoa, what's that song, as opposed to the 150 other songs that I just finished listening to today. So it's not saying that it's a better than, worse than thing, because you could hear it's two different techniques, and it is very subtle. But at the same time, like if you need just straight on, there, that's that, or just add a little bit of. If you really want to get, I mean, it's a little bit, definitely a bit more noticeable up high, and that's where it can really come into being more vocal or more lyrical, that kind of stuff. But getting back to building a bass line. So there we go. We start with roots. And in this case, some whole notes. Instead of just playing basic whole notes, we add a little bit of vibrato. So, okay, already I'm feeling a vibe. I'm still not feeling overly Jocko-ish. I'm not feeling overly Geddy Lee. Which rhymed? That was a good one. But at least now I'm starting to build a line that's a bass line. The next place that I always like to start is listening to the rhythm, obviously, with the drums. Now, all of us, have we all had a chance to play with great drummers, like good drummers? Arguably, yeah. And you know that you've played with a good drummer, because then when you play with other drummers, you're like, what just happened? There was a time, again, the same studio, and working on a project. There's 3 days, and the first 2 days were with kind of a local legend in Vancouver, this drummer who's just phenomenal, great dude. And 2 days tracking with him, I was in the control room. Not once did I ask for the click to be like pushed up in the mix, because he was just on, like just phenomenal. The type of drummer that is playing to a click and you're playing right in with it, but he could make it feel like the click was moving, almost that he could move it. His groove was that good. So 2 days, it was awesome, having a great time. The third day, another couple of drummers came in who I'd played a ton with before, great drummers in their own right. First, maybe second song in, I was like, can you bump the click up in the controller? I was having thoughts of what just happened. Did I wake up this morning and forget how to play? Like, why is the groove just isn't there? And then it dawned on me, it's like, these two drummers, they're great guys, because it happened with the other guy in the afternoon as well. Just different drummers, you know, and so when we play alongside amazing drummers, it's great, because your groove, you just let them do what they do, and you just follow along. If the drummer isn't quite as solid, then the technique of let's just follow the drums and lock in with the drums becomes, let's listen to what the drummer's doing, listen to what, like for example, if it's a church setting, you know, let's listen to what the drummer's doing, let's listen to what the acoustic guitar is doing, and let's try and bring those two people together. Other settings, it's like, okay, the drummer's kind of doing this, the singer and guitarist are kind of doing this, and that's where our time then has to kind of weave in between. There's the school of thought of let's lock right in with just the drums. So just with a kick. the snare, which is a great place to start. And in some instances, that's where you want to sit. But at the same time, I've talked with other players, and that's the only place they play, is just if the kick's getting hit or the snare. Those two. That's it. That's their only rhythmic variation. Myself, I like to hear what the drums are doing and then maybe play in and outside of them a little bit. So that's kind of the next step of evolution in our bass line, is we're gonna monkey around with the rhythm a little bit. Drummer, don't get mad at me if I was maybe a little loose in the pocket there on that last round. But there, you could hear with that building and variation of rhythm, what I was doing was, we started off with just playing where the kick and the snare was. And it's like, okay, that locks in and that sounds like a garage band bass line, because it's a MIDI bass line, yeah, it's happening there. As I progressed, what I was trying to do was have a conversation with the kit, because at this point, there's no other harmonic information going on. There's not a singer. So it's bass and drums, and let's have a talk. And so that's why in some of the holes that the drums were leaving, that's when I would play. And then I would leave a hole in the bass line and let that snare hit happen. Now, when I'm listening to this, it's not as academic as like, okay, all right, yes, there, it's hitting, and no, it's just from, like we all know, years of playing and playing along with tunes and everything else. You just kind of get into that mode where when I'm on stage and it's rehearsals, maybe we're coming up with original material, I'll start playing along, I'll just listen, not to anything in specifically, but I'll just listen, and little fills and riffs will come out, and I'm like, wow, where'd that come from? And then I start intentionally listening to specific instruments, and I go, oh, I heard the guitarist do that little thing, and so I came back with this. That's where that came from. And so as things progress, that's just how our ears and playing progresses. So rhythmically, that's how I've always treated playing along with drummers, is locking in with drums, but not necessarily playing exactly what the drummer's playing. Again, having that conversation. Questions, comments up until now? Anything? It's all good? Tracking good? Okay. All right. We'll truck along. Now I did add, after rhythm, and again, this isn't necessarily the order, but it's the most concise order just to go through for something like tonight. We started off just with roots and whole notes, which is, again, harmonic and rhythmic. Then changed things up rhythmically, so that we don't have to feel like, oh, I don't know any scales and I can't solo like Marcus Miller and I don't know what I'm... Well, that's fine. We just, with bass, single notes are totally fine. Which quickly, now that we're getting into the first harmonic, kind of my first harmonic evolution and place to explore. Quick question, do we know what this part of the neck is called? It's usually referred to as the upper register of the neck, right? So this part of the neck here, typically from about the 7th, sometimes the 9th, but usually the 7th fret to the nut, this part of the neck is called the, no, close, the cash register. And yes, that is my one and only dad joke of the night. But in all honesty, with bass players, this totally is, this is usually the dusty end, and this is where we play bass. So sometimes having to come up with lines and think of things harmonically, we can get stuck and be intimidated by a song, or again, like I've said, just, you're not feeling overly creative, overly inspired. So one place I usually like jumping into is the octave. Like octaves, and especially on a big PA, when it's not just a small amp, but when you're in a big PA, that G and that other G, two totally different animals. that. I mean, I was adding in some walk-ups and walk-downs and stuff. But the main thing there is adding that octave in, and not even doing that pattern per se, but climbing up like that. There we go, and that's all that was. Rhythmically, I've added in some rhythmic changes, but harmonically, just octaves. That's it. We didn't need to go, I don't have that much theory skill. I don't know too many scales. That's the octave. It's our best friend. And it immediately, whenever you play one note, the octave, you immediately have a second note that you can go to, a second note that you can pick from. And it just changes things, and it can change the shape. Maybe with a tune like this, if it's going to just be this over and over, so this might be the verse. Now it's into the chorus. Stay up high for the verses, go down low for the choruses, or low for the verse, high for the chorus. That thing, and that's, in certain situations, we can really kind of, sometimes forget that the octave is that powerful and it can make that much of a change, and it's that easy to find. Another thing is, play up higher on the neck. As soon as you go up there to the dusty end of the neck, it's like, oh my gosh, he's a bass player and he's playing above the 12th fret. He really has his stuff together. Like he's a real bass player. All the jazzy end. But I find that with using octaves, it's one of the quickest and easiest ways to start harmonically changing things. And also it opens up to rhythmic stuff, right? Immediately you have all these notes under your fingers that, when this whole thing started out, maybe it was like, oh my gosh, I've never played to that kind of groove before, I've never played this progression before, or I have played this progression before, and this isn't what I normally do. I just finished a full day at work, and now we're at rehearsal, and I gotta come up with something, but I also know that rent's due in 3 days, and I'm waiting for a check to clear, and all that kind of stuff. And so this is just like, just breathe. We're playing music. It's a good thing. It's this side of the grass. It's all good. And these little techniques I've had to use in situations where it's like I really have to come up with something because somebody's paid me to be there to come up with something, and I'm just not feeling it that day. And so I just go down my checklist and go, okay. And then as we start moving things, then it starts getting to a place of, all right, I'm actually creating. We've gone from this now to this. From whole notes to that, and pretty quickly. And the evolution of that isn't that big of a stretch. Now, furthermore, with harmonic variance. This is where we get into understanding chords a little bit. Do we all understand chords a little bit theory-wise? Triad, everybody knows what a triad is, root, third, fifth. That's the basic kind of building blocks of really getting around and creating. Now, if you don't, it's fine. If you don't have that kind of theory knowledge, there are the interwebs now. And there's lots of great videos and resources. But look at guys like Paul McCartney. I mean, he kind of did okay with his career without really having any musical training per se, you know, not too bad. Pretty good ear on that guy. But I find that when you know at least the basic fundamentals of a chord, then you have more notes that you can go to when you're given one note, you know. So if you're given, in this case, like a B flat major, or if it's just B flat, that means it's a major triad. So then I know I've got my B flat, my root. I've also got another B flat, which is the octave, so there's 2 notes. I've got a major third, and I've got a perfect fifth. So out of that one note on the chord chart, I've got 4 that I can use, 4 that I can go to. And again, anecdote time. Way back in the day, because I was first and foremost self-taught, learned by ear, just playing along with my favorite CDs, favorite players. Hadn't gone to music school yet. And when I when I started playing for, again, it was just a worship team at church, and came in, I had my fretless, nobody played fretless, you know, like, all right, I could get around on it really good with just learning how to play bass from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Jane's Addiction, all the great 90s alternative bands. I was fairly confident in my playing, in my ear, and coming up with lines. And I remember getting handed a chord chart, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, Pete, I didn't mark down whether it was major or minor, I just have the chord names. And out of my own mouth, I'm like, oh, that's fine. You know, it doesn't matter if it's major or minor, I don't need that, I just need to know what chord it is, like just the note. Such a dummy. It's like, then I quickly learned, no, Pete, you know, it's not that that you necessarily really need to know the chord in full, but if you don't want to keep just hunting and pecking and trying to figure out notes that might work, when you know what the chord is and you know how that chord is put together, you don't have to guess the notes because you know the notes that'll work. So that was a good time where, yet again, you know, foot sandwich time. So it was good. Now, expanding on this. So freaking out a bit more at the end there, but the initial line was. And you can feel how that already even rhythmically is changing the feel of the line. And all we're doing there is just the root up to the third and playing the fifth. You know, just another thing with where you play the note, because again, I'm going from B flat to D to F. You can play D there, but I'm not going to get a nice slide up. So there's another consideration, much like the octave thing, is not only what note am I going to play, but where am I going to play that note? Because where you play that note might steer your bass line into a completely different direction. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I'm going to do that for this. And now I'm up in this end of the neck. You know, and you start doing all these slides, and now this bass line is taking on a whole new life and a whole new direction. From just a simple little concept, simple little 3 notes. You know, we know that it's B flat major triad, F major triad, like these are just major triads. And the line, again, we've gone from whole notes to that's where we start looking at the fingerboard. That's one thing that I use is just shapes and being, familiar with. Being able to see where my hand is, and I know that there's my fifth, there's my octave, there's the third right away. I can go up there without necessarily being able to call out the note names that quick. I'm not quite as proficient as Thelonious Monk in being able to go, yeah, no, that's that. I go, oh yeah, that's that shape. That should be the fifth there. That should be the third. But just branching out, and now you can feel with that bass line, it's taken a completely different route from just going. It has a similar vibe, again, because of the chord progression and the drums that we're playing along with. But that second bass line now it's a little less percussive, it's a little more fluid, and once guitars come in, once vocals come in, who knows what you're going to be playing on top of and over and that kind of a thing. So there we've gone in a quick, short little half an hour already, from hearing a track for the first time, a groove, and going, great, I am very uninspired, but I need to come up with a bass line because I told everybody I was the bass player today. And that's how we can build our lines. Start with locking in, start with, okay, what key are we in? What notes are we playing, the root notes? And then from there, expand the rhythm. Then expand the harmonic content and use basic little things to go from just, and I mean, the one thing that I didn't even try is, don't be afraid to have bad ideas too. But you never know. That driving little eighth note bit, you might start playing that, the drummer picks up on it, the guitarist picks up on it, and to my ears, that sounds like that could have been a really good, almost, not quite Eagles, but just, that's a great outro. Like, all of a sudden the song's been here the whole time, and then you just lift it up for the outro, and you're just driving some eights. And that's just straightforward, like that, and everybody might just clue in and pick up on it. So don't be afraid to try stuff that you wouldn't normally go to, because again, we're coming up with something. It's not like there's a part that's already written that we have to follow. It's music. It's completely up to us. And then one thing that reminded me of, by the way, is the fact that using my thumb, the other thing that I didn't get to is, without having to use effects, the pick. And volume too. Let's try that. If you've never played with a pick, buy some picks. Because now it's a completely different characteristic. And of course, with a pick, I'm doing the very stereotypical, just chugging away. I rolled off the bridge pickup a little bit so that it was more of a neck, so I was getting more of a P bass tone out of a J, and then rolling the tone off a little bit more. There we go. A pick can be such a great thing, and oftentimes, I mean, of course, you know, people joke and go, well, if you play with a pick, you're not a bass player. No, it's another device, it's another tool, and it's so cheap. It's way cheaper than getting the latest, greatest pedal that's going to change your world. You know, picks and strings. Quick little side note, segue into gear talk. It's always been my opinion that, like with things like picks and strings, especially, the quickest, cheapest, easiest way to tweak our tone and to kind of play around with tone and what you're getting. Anybody just use one brand of string that they've been using for like the last 10 years? Okay, good. That's good. That's awesome. I've kind of myself, I've finally settled into a brand that I dig, but even within that brand, I'm like, oh, these are pure nickels. Oh, these are pure stainless. Oh, these ones have a round core. Oh, these are hex core. You know, like, I mean, and they do all have a different feel and a different tone. And it's, even with bass strings, it's not as cheap as guitar strings, and whenever any guitarists that I play with complain about the price of guitar strings, I'm like, do you want to buy some strings for my upright? Because I can't even remember the last time I changed strings on that thing. Because when I did, it was like, oh, okay. Yeah, we'll do this again in another 10 years. We'll just take care of these strings. But with bass strings, I mean, yeah, they're not the cheapest thing, but at the same time, they're a lot cheaper than a new bass, a lot cheaper than a new amp. You know, and it's a way that we can, you know, even between round wounds and flat wounds, trying out some flats or trying out some half round, you know, whatever else the latest is. There's a quick and easy way to change our tone. But picks, definitely, I encourage you, if you've never bothered playing with a pick, grab a few picks. And they do have different tones. Like, I've got I think this is Altex material. It's a Kirk Hammett signature pick, Kirk Hammett from Metallica. And they do have, here's the very trusted Fender medium shell. You can hear there how it's somebody that's not played for a long time. Yeah, no, it's exactly the same. And it isn't. Like, there are slight variants. And that's the cool thing with picks, because they're so, well, typically cheap. You can get some crazy expensive ones. But again, using a pick, the type of pick that you're using, can just change things up where you're plucking. So yes, I encourage, run out, get some picks, keep some picks on you. I would encourage, if you have a regular band that you jam with, that you play with, rotate a pick into your set. And, you know, maybe don't play the exact same song every time with a pick. Just go, okay, set list tonight, song number 2 and song number 5. I'm going to use a pick. And then next night, song 3, song 1, whatever. But just use a pick and see how that maybe changes, because it'll work for some songs, it'll not work for some songs. But it might totally change what you're doing in your approach, to go, oh man, I can totally just, that rocks harder now with a pick. Or I can't believe that I'm using a pick and palm muting on this ballad. It's giving me attack, but yet it's soft and it's working great for this ballad. So that's, you know, little tweaks like that we can get into. Comments, questions? Again, totally feel free to throw, even if it's not related to what I'm talking about right now, throw it out there, because I'm sure others might want to hear. Nothing? Good. Go on. So constructing the bass line bit, for me, that kind of is the end of that part of the tour. You know, because we've come in, we've started with just the basics, even without a chart. And we've built this bass line up to something that's actually a functional, fun bass line. Now the other side of it is, again, this is only half of it, because it's keys, drums, and bass. Who knows what the vocal might be doing? Who knows what the guitar might be doing? And I feel as bassists, that's where we're always the coolest in the band, because we're the peacemakers, we're the peace bringers. Because the drummer's gonna do what he wants to do. The guitarist is gonna typically try doing what they want to do, and then there's the singer, which there's the singer. But as bass, we get in there and go, okay, we need to be functional. But at the same time, it doesn't mean we have to sit back and listen to guys like McCartney, guys like Geddy Lee, guys like Les Claypool. Like, these are bands, well, even for myself, Eric Avery with Jane's Addiction. That band was so bass driven, the bass played the riff of the song, but at the same time never got in the way to making it sound like, hey, I'm the bass player, focus on me. The drive in last night, listening on the radio, and they played a great old 90s, I think it was the 90s, maybe it was late 80s, it was probably late 80s, Jason Bonham, his first band, and they played a hit from Bonham, and it was just like, it was a cool song, it's a good enough tune, but listening to it, like, wow, they mixed that, so here's the drums, vocals are kind of here, guitar is here, bass, I don't know where the bass was. And that was it, that was the mix. Like, even a person who wouldn't know that Jason Bonham is John Bonham of Led Zeppelin's son, you'd listen to this song and go, wow, this is the drummer's band, isn't it? Because, you know, the drums are so much in the mix and so forward. But with bass, we can come into situations like that and go, okay, I'm ripping along, I'm having a great time. Oh, the vocal's doing a totally different thing melodically, or even harmonically. They might be reaching out into some weird notes. So then we're like, oh, okay, we'll have to trim that back, or I'll have to save this spot for the bridge or somewhere else. But that's the other thing to always keep in mind, you know, you're creating music, you're making conversation, and if it's a cool bass bit, that's awesome, but if it doesn't work with the song at the end of the day and get the entire thought across, then just go, okay, all right. Then I guess we are going back to, but I'm gonna tweak it here. And who knows, that might be the best line that works with the song at the end of the day. But the point is, we've taken it from that to its extremes and back again with, like, all absolutely intellectually. You know, there's not been any kind of, oh yes, I'm feeling very inspired by this. And no, it's just like, oh, I need to make a bass line. You know, like working at a fast food place, I just need to make this hamburger right now. There's no essence of anything. It's just making the line. And then at the end of it, you're ultimately playing it, so that's going to come across. And when you find that bass line, I find for myself, after I've gone through just like, okay, well, we'll just do the triad thing, see if that works. And then go, oh, yeah, it does kind of work. And then my creative side, the creativity starts kicking in. Like, oh yeah, now I'm going to make this mine. Now I'm actually feeling more musical, kind of a deal. So yeah, that's what I've got to say about building a bass line. Questions, comments, concerns? We'll get into gear. Gear is a whole other side of thing where, I mean, I'm pretty sure I've played most basses on the market. Back to the strings thing, I think I've played every type of string that there is out there and monkeyed around with that. Amps, and get into amps and pedals and everything else. I still feel that make sure that if you're just starting out, try and find a teacher for at least a few lessons to get your basics down. Because I know with my upright, when I got into playing upright, that's what it was. I got given an upright and I'm like, awesome, this is great. I have no concept of how to play this thing. I know I need to find somebody to teach me. And so I did, which was great because it ended up turning into probably my biggest bass mentor in my life and great friend for life, the teacher that I found for my upright. But the thing that it did with that was it showed me how to properly play the instrument. So as we can get down the rabbit hole of, wow, this is the latest, greatest Fender jazz bass that's just out and it's $2,000 and I'm gonna drop $2,000 on that, and oh, this pedal over here, that's the latest and greatest. So and we can get into the specs and into all the latest, craziest gear, but we're still playing our notes at the back half of the fret, and our tone is like that, you know? So don't not get into gear, because gear is great to get into, but at the same time, make sure that your foundation as a player is there and building as you're building tools, as you're building gear. So with that, I'm not sure if everybody's aware that at Fender we've discontinued the American Standard line after 30 years. 2016 was the last year for American Standard in 2017, we introduced the new American Professional series of guitars and basses to take the place of American Standard. A few of the changes with the basses. First off, we now have a tapered or a fluted taper on the tuning posts. So what that does is we're actually able to create more of a down angle over the nut. And the string, rather than the string, if you've ever tried to restring a vintage Fender or a Fender with vintage tuning posts, the big round posts, your string just does not go to the bottom of the post. So now with it being tapered, they'll actually sit, the string itself as you're winding it goes to the bottom of the post, which creates a better break angle over the nut, which if you've never experienced that, the break angle here is really key to tone, to just the overall tone of your bass. If you've played a bass where you go, it's okay, but it's just some of the strings open seem a lot more dead than when I actually fret them and close them off. What might be happening in that situation is the string coming off the nut might not be breaking over the nut at a sharp enough angle, because again, these 2 points have to be good termination points to really let the string ring out. And if it's not, then you're in trouble. I remember there was a gig that I did, it was a fly date, I had to use the bass that was there. They had old school kind of style tuners, and the A string came straight off the neck to the top of the post. Like they actually wound it so the winds were underneath and going up to the top of the post. And as I was playing the bass, like fretted notes on the A were fine. As soon as I hit that open A, it literally did this. It did that, like no sustain, and it was, man, what's going on with this thing? So then I kind of pinched it back here, played the A, and it rang. I'm like, oh my gosh. And it was a thing where I didn't have time or anything to restring it or didn't have other strings there. So basically what I did is made sure that I never played an open A. It was always like, I have to play an A? All right, I'll play it there. Play it closed on the E string. But that's one of those little things that as players, we might not be aware of. Hopefully everybody knows how to change the strings on their basses. It's a good thing. As a teacher, when I used to teach lessons, beginners, it's one of the first things that I would teach my students is how to change their strings, because it's those basic. It's like knowing how to check the air in your tires or put washer fluid in or check the oil on your car. Like you need to know how to do these things. You don't necessarily need to know how to deal with the injectors or everything, but you need to know the basics. And restringing is a huge thing, because even though the guys here at L&M Saskatoon are awesome, and definitely bring your instruments in for them to do setups and take care of, stuff like string changes, we can do those. Save a little bit of cash, spend a bit more on the strings when you buy them here at Long Great Saskatoon. So taking care of that. So with the new American Pro basses, we've got these new fluted tuners for that to happen and help with the break angle over the nut. With the jazz bass, we've also slightly reshaped the neck to a new slim C, a modern slim C neck, which for me, when I first heard that, I was a little bit worried, because even though I don't have the largest fingers, I've got a good pierogi tone Ukrainian hand, but like other brands that have smaller necks, like a Geddy Lee, the Mexican Geddy Lee, that neck is a little too tiny for me. I find my hand cramps up a little too much. And so when I heard that we're doing a slim C, I'm like, what's it gonna feel like? But this neck, I'm so loving the new J neck. It still has a good amount of meat behind it. So it's almost more like an old 60s jazz bass, where it's still 1.5 inches width of the nut, but there's still some depth, so your hand doesn't totally get cramped up and stuff. The other big thing that we changed is the new V-Mod pickups. So it's vintage modified, completely revoiced from the pickups that were in the American standards. What's going on here is the magnets under the E and A string are Alnico 5, and under the D and G is Alnico 2. And so Alnico 5 is a bit stronger, throatier, forceful kind of magnet. The 2 is a little bit rounded off. a little sweeter on the top end. And what I find for my ears is, like, yes, that's a jazz bass. Like that's that great bridge pickup, burp. Both pickups full up. That's a jazz bass, that nice kind of little, tiny little bit of a mid scoop, and then, you know, soloing the neck a little bit more. You get kind of a bit more of that P bass wool. But to my ears, and yes, I do work for the company, but these pickups are just, they're outstanding. It's got such a great voice altogether. So that's the American Professional line that we've debuted with the P bass behind me, the Antique Olive. What we've done with the P bass, it now has the 63 neck shape. So kind of the golden era of P bass. It's got that just a great, comfortable 1963 P shape. And then the P pickup as well is the new V-Mod Alnico 5, Alnico 2 pickup in it. A couple other basses that I've pulled out here as well, because I've got a great selection at the store, is the new Signature Flea bass, which I'm not sure if we've all seen that before. Has anybody seen or heard tell? We've got some great videos on the website with Flea talking about his new signature bass. Like a road worn series, nice and worn like Flea's 61 Jazz or 60 Jazz. Stack knobs, and yeah, meant to look like his. So here, I'll pass that around actually. Got a little bit of weight to it. With the uber rare shell pink. I'm gonna plug this guy in. Just because. Hopefully it's somewhat in tune. This is the Steve Harris signature P bass. So if there's any Iron Maiden fans out there. That thing is so fun. Had to do that. So this thing, such a monster of a P bass. It's like, that's if Steve's basses are like this, he is a champion for being able to still be walking upright. Because this is a P bass to be reckoned with. So with this one, what we've done is it's modeled after Steve's bass that he uses. So it's kind of our version of a badass high mass bridge. Steve's signature pickups in there, maple neck. The thing that I dig that we did to kind of keep it period era correct and really line up with his bass is you'll notice the maple fingerboard and the maple neck are pretty light, but the headstock is tinted. And that's, I believe his bass is a, what year was it originally? I want to say it's a 70s-esque, late 60s. But what happened is, if you've ever noticed a Fender that has a really, really like aged headstock, but yet the maple neck and fingerboard are still bright and not faded and not aged. I know that definitely during the 70s, what was happening was lacquer, like nitro, was still being sprayed on the headstocks, but the rest of the neck and the fingerboard was poly. And so you get that big goopy 70s poly finish on the fingerboard, but the headstock was nitro. So from factory, they would look pretty similar in color, but of course, poly doesn't really age. Nitro does. And so you get those great 70s Strats and Tellys and stuff with a really dark headstock and then, you know, the bright maple fingerboard. And so that's what's going on there. And I dug it that we put that on this bass to just kind of match it up to his actual, you know, gigging, touring bass that he's had forever. And even, you know, even out of our Ensenada factory in Mexico, it's, you know, this isn't a custom shop P bass. This is $1,300, and this is a bass that, sure, with a paint job, if you know Iron Maiden and Steve Harris, people are gonna be, oh, that's Iron Maiden fanboy over there. But it's a P bass. It's a great P bass that, again, you plug in and you play, and it's a P bass. Now, with the aftermarket, you know, our version of the badass high mass bridge on it, and then with Steve's pickup in it, but it's still a P bass. You know, you plug it in, and the Jamerson riff worked just as well as the Iron Maiden riff on it. And that's one of the things that I love about Fender and P basses, J basses, Strats, Tellys. When I've done kind of a brief history of Fender, I include pictures of guys like, you know, Brad Paisley on Telly, as well as John Five with a Telly, you know, or Jim Root from Slipknot with a Telly. Now, mind you's got EMGs in it. But also, I've got a picture of James Jamerson with Fender bass, with P bass, with the legacy of bass in general. You have to have James Jamerson. I mean, the guy was one of the all-time greatest bass players and musicians ever. But the interesting thing is that Jamerson, the only difference between Jamerson's bass with all the great Motown hits and that vibe and feel, to Steve Harris and Iron Maiden and, you know, godfathers of heavy metal in their own right, the only difference was Steve had a maple fingerboard and James Jamerson had a rosewood fingerboard. They're both P basses. This bass actually doesn't come from factory with flat wounds, but that's what Steve Harris uses. Steve Harris of Iron Maiden uses a Fender Precision bass with flat wound strings. James Jamerson, arguably one of the greatest electric bassists of all time, Motown, all that stuff. Fender P bass with flat wounds. Excellent, there we go. So now on to this guy. So this is the new American Professional P bass. We still have, again, I didn't flip it around on the J, but we've got our high mass bridge, string through, or top load, you choose what you want to do. Yeah, just a really, really fun bass. I'll pass that. Don't worry, I know it's another P bass, but it's not the Harris, so you're not going to throw your back out with this one. And yeah, the new antique olive, such a great color. The two new color sets, antique olive. This is sonic gray, which is just growing on me more and more. It's just such cool colors. Now, one thing we did do this year for the American Professional is there are only 4 color options for the basses, which at first I'm like, wow, what's going on? Only 4 colors. But it's almost, you know, harkening back to the beginnings of Fender. And I like that because I feel the colors we've chosen are classic, are great colors, and just get down to business, you know, get the bass, just play. Questions, comments?
Are these the 4 colors that we...
Yeah, so what we have, there's the J. With jazz, it is black, we have black, white, sonic gray, and burst. And with P bass, it's black, white, burst, and antique olive. Yeah, good fun. What do you think of that Harris? It's a little beefy, huh? It's got some weight to it. I like to call those ones, it's definitely a studio bass. You can sit down and go, all right, good, yeah, I don't have to
Get
stand
back
up.
pain trying to play that on stage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
bring any Mustang basses?
I didn't, but I'll go grab one. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, actually, we've got one right over here. That's very nice. That's a good one. Yes. So this is actually our new re-envisioned Mustang bass. So we've come out with a whole new line of offsets last fall. So we've brought back the Duosonic and the Mustang guitars with newly tooled bridges and everything else. And this is the new Mustang bass. So you can see one of the main differences is that it has a P and a J pickup. Full Monty. Nothing about that sounds short scale or small. It is short scale bass, very manageable. Let's pass this one around. But with that regular PJ setup in it, it's like even the old school traditional Mustang bass. I mean that pickup has some output to it and it has a very specific tone. But I find with this guy, it's great because it's just that you play different on that shorter scale. Excellent.
Does it need a battery?
What's that?
Does it need a battery?
No, it's all passive. All passive. And actually, one more that I'm going to go and grab from over here. While we're doing it, we might as well bring the whole line up. So this is the American Elite P-Bass. And this came out 2 years ago. We debuted this. This took the place of the old American Deluxe series. Again, what we've got going on here is, this is kind of, if you're needing a more modern voice, still that traditional Fender everything. But with the addition of an 18-volt active preamp, noiseless J pickup, as well as active-passive operation on this guy. Extended heel cut, so this massive new carve. So when you really get up into here, you can see, and when you pass it around, rest your thumb up against the heel, and you're comfortably at the highest end of the neck. And yeah, this really is, just like the name says, it's elite. This is the elite. This is the top shelf kind of thing. With this kind of bass, with a PJ pickup setup, with an 18-volt active passive preamp, there's no style, no gig that you're not going to be able to cover. You know, again, because you've got just everything dialed in. Compound radius fingerboard, our asymmetrical cut at the back of the neck. It's like everything that we can throw at a modern instrument all in one. And that one does have 2 batteries. So, yeah.
Did the Deluxe have a switch here?
No, that was
No,
added.
it was just on here, right? For that.
The American Deluxe didn't have the active passive option.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Was that the special then? The Precision Special? It didn't have this Precision Special, but it has this, right?
Yeah, it had the preamp in it.
The preamp, yeah.
Absolutely.
But just using these controls.
Yeah, exactly. So what's going on with that? It's bass, mid, treble, as well as a passive tone roll off still for when you're in passive mode. Yeah.
That's a good feature.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's It's really, and again, these come in. American Elite Precision is this with the PJ setup. American Elite Jazz comes in 4 or 5 string versions. We do have 5 string versions of the American Professional P bass. American Professional Jazz bass comes in a 5. The other thing, I haven't seen one yet in the wild. They are shipping, but introduced with the American Professional Series this year is a fretless jazz bass. So this is the first time in a long time, to my memory, that we've offered an American fretless. We do have the Tony Franklin, which is made in the US, Signature fretless, which is a great fretless. We've got the Jocko fretless, but as far as just like standard here is fretless jazz bass, we haven't had one out of America for a while. So it's really cool that again on this platform of the American Professional, it's aligned fretless jazz bass. So that's good to see. And again, that's one other thing. Just as much as trying to play with a pick, if you've not ever owned a fretless or had a fretless, come into the shop here, see what they might have for rent. We do a couple of great Squire fretless basses, but I feel that fretless is one of those things that as a bassist, we should have 2 basses, a fretted and a fretless. Doesn't matter, they can be 4, 5, 6, 8, whatever string, but I really feel that you owe it to yourself as a bassist to at least spend some time on a fretless. It's a completely different vibe. It's a whole new world. And it's not just a ballad thing, you know, like listen to Pino Palladino from the 80s and 90s, the stuff that he's done on fretless, Les Claypool on fretless, Jocko on fretless. What do you think of the short scale, the Mustang?
I love it.
Is it fun?
Yeah.
Yeah, very comfortable. And again, full-bodied tone with those pickups. Questions, comments, disagreement. Amp-wise, I'll probably end on amps here. So tonight I was playing through the wonderful Rumble 100. The Rumble series for me is one of those amps that I feel gets overlooked a little bit. I really dig the tone of it. Now, I mean, I'm not hearing it exactly. You guys are getting slammed with it, but that I've played in, if I'm that loud on stage, sound man is yelling at me because, you know, I hear this is a $400 Uber Light combo amp, and I mean that's got plenty of jam. Now we've also got there's the bright switch, which sometimes some of the features on other amps, you know, they do stuff, but maybe not voiced the way you'd like them voiced. For me, that bright switch it's just enough that it's not totally cutting your head off, but in a mix, it's going to bring out just that right amount of fret noise and everything else. Top end that you need. Here's contour. Slappy tone. And then vintage. section at all. Those are just the preset buttons on the Rumble. I think, you know, a lot of us have known Rumble for years. This is the latest version that we tweaked a couple of years ago. Rumble is just being a good, you know, bedroom practice amp, beginner amp. But I really feel that our larger combos like this, the 100, definitely the 200, and then the 500. The Rumble 200 and 500 combos, I don't know that there's a gig that you couldn't do with those two combos just because of the fact, the power and the tone. And again, portability on these is crazy. They're so light. It's just getting over that thing of, it's a Rumble, is it maybe not as cool as my GK or my Eden or my whatever, you know? No, it's good. It's cost effective. Tone is rock solid, you know, warranty's great, and it's Fender. How can you not love it? It's Fender. But if you haven't really looked into maybe some of the bigger combos and stuff for Rumble, I recommend that. Like, you might surprise yourself. The other stuff, don't have any here today, but our Pro line. So the Super Bassman, which is the big, our 300 watt all tube killer head. That amp is just, it's gorgeous. It's got a vintage section, a modern section, the built-in overdrive is just out of this world. If you get a chance to play that, I highly recommend it. We also do its little brother, the Bass 100T, Bassman 100T, which is a 100 watt version, all tube again. And then we have the Bassman 800 and Bassman 500. All four amps share the exact same preamp, but just different power sections. So in the 800 and 500, those are Class D power sections. They still look like a proper huge head, and they come in at around, I think, 17 pounds, and that's primarily just the cabinet, because it's got the ultralight amp technology in it, but just with a traditional looking head. So it's nice to have a head that's small that you can just put in your gig bag, and yeah, there's my amp head. At the same time, I've played with heads like that on cabinets with cables that maybe weren't wrapped around places to secure them enough, and you can't lean them back because the head will go flying off wherever. You walk around and it's flying off the top of the cabinet. You know, I just think aesthetically, sometimes it's nice to look back, like with an SVT or something. Right? It's like, yeah, it's a big bass stack. So I really dig the fact that with the 500 and 800 Bassman heads, we've kept the traditional head casing. So it looks like, you know, traditional head, but you go to pick it up and, you know, basically it's just your index finger. You can lift the amp. So definitely check those out when you get a chance. Along with our Pro line speakers from 810, 610, 410, and 15 using Neo speakers. Our 610, it's kind of at the limit, but I would say you could easily manage loading and unloading our Neo 610 cab in and out of the back of your hatchback by yourself without having to go see the chiropractor or anything. Like, it's a really manageable cabinet for a 610 cab. That's the first thing when I first played it and had one and I had to haul one around for a bit. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, you just stand there and hold the back handle and lift it up and go, I'm doing this with a 6x10 cabinet? What's going on? So that's definitely some fun stuff to look into from us. And at the same time, there's so many great resources online bass-wise. If you haven't looked into it, I urge you to look into it. Find a teacher if you don't have one. Even if you've been playing forever, maybe you want to branch out. Maybe you've plateaued and you want to look into, you know, I've never really played salsa bass or reggae. I've never really fully played reggae before. I want to hit the web, you know. And also hit your local L&M with teachers. You guys have a great teaching staff. You know, that's one of the things I really respect about the stores cross country is they really do offer musicians everything we need. Not only access to the best gear, but also things like great teachers and stuff like that. So, yeah, without any other questions, comments, concerns? Yeah.
So we've talked about constructing bass lines,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, with guys like Jacko and stuff, how would you create as a bass, you know, crazy bass solo?
Like that? Yeah. That is where, well, I mean, that's definitely not my strong suit. My bass soloing is like, all right, just give me a great song and I'll play behind that great song. But with soloing, one thing for myself that I've always used when I've had to is don't wait for the notes to just magically appear. Sing it. Also, there's a great book. It's a jazz book. It's pretty heavy, as in very heavy, getting into almost like college level material theory-wise. It's called the goal note method. The gist of that book is when you're soloing or even playing a line, you should always have a destination note that you're trying to get to. And if in your head you have a note, a place that you want to get to, then everything you're going to play to get there will fall in line with getting there. Now, a player like Jocko, who had a vocabulary of songs that he memorized, as well as a crazy understanding of music, like just theory, sit down on piano, whatever. You want to talk about knowing how chords are constructed, stuff like that. That's where he comes from. So then you take the synthesis of all that, so all of your intellectual knowledge about music, like theory, and then all your real world gigging, just playing good R&B tunes to get people dancing. You put those two together, and freaky DNA, and you get guys like Jocko. But to solo, that's really what it is you're speaking, you know. And so it's that next step of, like what I was saying with evolving your line rhythmically and harmonically. Just take what we did here tonight with like a basic, you know, the basic little. So that was still quasi-baseline-ish, but that was starting to get into, okay, a solo could possibly break out at any time, kind of a deal. And all I was doing there was getting, in my head, a bit more lyrical, a bit more vocal, and singing notes that I wanted to go to. So just work on that, and really, like, sing your solos. There's a great bassist, Oteil Burbridge, who I think who does he play for now? I think he plays with Tedeschi Trucks. Tedeschi Trucks, is that the name of the band? Susan Tedeschi, Derek Trucks. Yeah. Great band, and here's a guy that he also played for the Allman Brothers. Phenomenal. He can get on a 4-string and just groove out, as well as has a couple different signature 6-string basses. But when he solos, he sings into the mic as he's soloing, and he plays. Like he sings his solo or he plays his singing, whichever way you want to look at it. And that really helps, because again, you're not just kind of going, okay, where are the notes? Come to me, notes. No, they have to be there first, so then you can put them through the instrument and not the amp. So yeah, awesome. Excellent, guys. Well, thanks so much again for coming out tonight. Hopefully there's some stuff there to kind of pick from and glean from and further your bass paths. I'd like to thank Pete and the crew here at the store for having me in.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you.